Hey guys, it's Kay. Welcome back to my channel. And since it's another Motivation Monday, I want to give you 5 things that you can stop feeling guilty about and stop beating yourself up about when you're trying to get organized. Now before we get too far into this, if you like organizing tips and home stuff and occasional music stuff, please subscribe to my channel. It is totally free. All you have to do is press that red button and press the bell to get notified so you won't miss a single upload. Oh, and here's Clover. You guys missed him in the last video, so here he is. Here he is. Say hi to the people. Hi. You're so cute. You're so cute. How are you so cute? In my career as a professional organizer, I've gone to a lot of people's houses, and often I find myself going there and they are embarrassed. As soon as I walk in the door, they say, "Oh, it's so messy in here. I'm so sorry. Oh, that's on the floor. I should move that there." Or, "Oh my gosh, it's so dirty in here. I'm so embarrassed." I'm not there to judge you. I'm there to help you with your organizational issues and any problems to make you feel good about your home. I am not there to judge. And my first tip to prevent you from feeling terrible and to stop you from being intimidated when you're trying to get organized is be kind to yourself. I read this book called Effortless Mastery by a jazz pianist named Kenny Werner. A few years ago, I was having real issues with audition anxiety. When I would go in to sing for panels, I would get so nervous. I wouldn't get nervous when it was a performance, but the audition situation for some reason really got me into a tailspin, and I would go in and perform really badly. My leg would shake. I wouldn't be able to sight read. It was a really big mess. So one of my friends, who was actually a really great flutist, recommended this book called Effortless Mastery by Kenny Werner. And the first thing that really stood out to me in this book was the words, "Be kind to yourself." There are already so many external things in life that are probably going to make you feel bad. Maybe your boss is yelling at you, maybe your kids are dissatisfied with you and they're also coming at you. It's just a lot to be taking in, and you don't need you from the inside beating yourself up too. So the least you can do is be kind to yourself, right? Be realistic about what is realistic. Now, I go on to Pinterest sometimes and I look at pictures, and also even Instagram, and even some organizing videos here on YouTube, not calling anyone out, but just some videos here on YouTube. Everything looks so perfect. Everything is just perfectly in its place, lined up together, pretty and pastel, and just so beautiful. But this is real life we're talking about here. So we really have to figure out what is actually going to be functional and realistic for you in your life. If everything is not like lined up perfectly and labeled with like cute little labels, I have a secret. It's gonna be okay. Aesthetics and function can totally go together, and something can be totally beautiful and it actually functional, but function to me is way more important than aesthetics. If something functions for you and it's not that pretty, I say you won. There's a few areas in my house that are like really pretty, but there's a lot of places in here that are just basically functioning and not like super neat and perfect all the time. Give yourself a break about dynamic spaces. Now, when I talk about dynamic spaces, I think everywhere in your house is pretty much a dynamic space. Things can definitely change, but I'm talking about things that change. I'm talking about places that change a lot. Your refrigerator. You are buying food, probably could be every few days, could be once a week, could be every day if you're really into that. Stuff is being shifted around a lot. Give yourself a break when it comes to these spaces. These spaces are a lot harder to maintain. Right now, my refrigerator is pretty much a disaster, but you know what? That's okay. All I have to do is spend 10 minutes in there, tidy up a little bit, and it's totally fine. Dynamic spaces are gonna take a little more maintenance. Just give yourself a break if it gets a little bit crazy. It's not that big of a deal. Take a few deep breaths, go in, take 10 minutes. You'll be surprised how much you can accomplish. Other examples of really dynamic spaces are entryways. So that entryway closet, if you have one, that can get really out of control really quickly. Even your own clothes closet can get really out of control really quickly because it's such a dynamic space. You're going in there, you're pulling out things every day to wear, and if you're not really meticulous about putting things back perfectly, it can get a little bit messy from time to time, but that's perfectly normal. Go in there, give yourself 10 minutes to tidy, and then just forget about it. Give yourself a break. Trying to be organized when you live with other people is very challenging, especially if they have not committed to the path of organization that you want to be on. And the best thing you can really do in this situation, if like maybe say your kids are defying this whole like organization thing, or if the husbands don't really want to get on board, the best thing you can do instead of trying to strong arm them into it, or maybe like just nagging and being that nag, they probably will resist you if you do that, is to really just set a good example. If you set a good example, they're most likely going to follow you in a little bit, in like a little small way at least. Some measure of compromise is also going to be a good play here. Let's say the kids are leaving their toys in the living room every day, and as much as you want them to put them away, they just don't. It's just a thing that happens. Kids just do that, and I did that when I was a kid. I left my toys everywhere. If your kids are leaving things in the living room and not taking them back, well, have a place for them to put them in the living room when they're done playing with them. If it's a bin they can just throw them into, great. And that way, if they just put the things in the bin, maybe eventually they can start carrying that bin back to their bedroom and put the toys away back where they belong so that you don't have to look at them all day long. Just some measure of compromise just to see what's gonna work best. Lastly, when you're living with other people and they're not sort of being as organized as you want them to be, sometimes you're going to have to take a little bit more responsibility than maybe you wanted to, and maybe you are the one that's actually putting dishes in the dishwasher if you really want them there. If it really bothers you, then go ahead and step up and do the deed. I know it doesn't feel good because like you're like, well, I didn't use that dish, or I didn't, not put that in the recycling, but sometimes if it really does bother you, you're just gonna have to take it on yourself, give yourself a break, and just forget about it. Try to set a good example to maybe modify the behavior a little bit through example, but if it really bothers you, sometimes you're gonna have to do some of that stuff yourself. And finally, trial and error is probably the way you're going to solve most organizational problems. Trial and error is sometimes the only way you're going to find out what's going to work for you in terms of an organizational system. Sometimes you'll set up a system and it'll work great for you right away, and you'll never need to like set it up again, and you'll feel great about it. But sometimes you'll set up a system, use it for a few weeks, and things start to crumble and fall apart, and you're like, well, I set up that system and I failed. I must not be good at organizing. That is not true. Sometimes things just simply don't work, and you have to think of a new solution. There are many, many ways to solve a problem, but only one way really, or maybe even two ways or three ways are gonna work for you. You have to figure out which one is gonna work for you, and the only way to do that is within trial and error. So if the problem that you're trying to solve didn't get solved the first time, just simply try a new method. You might need to get another set of eyes on it to like maybe give you some objective feedback, but I guarantee you if you try maybe like 2 or 3 different systems, you'll find definitely one that's gonna work for you and your family. So that's it. Those are the 5 ways you can give yourself a break, be kind to yourself when you're setting up your organizing systems and you're trying to organize your house so that you don't go crazy. I know it can seem like an intimidating process, especially if the whole house seems to be bothering you and you don't know where to start. Just really remember, number 1 is be kind to yourself and really just work in steps. It's not gonna happen overnight. It's not gonna be perfect, but the best thing you can do is just take 1 step forward. You never know what's gonna happen after that. All right, you guys, well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, share it with somebody you think will like it, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!